Hey, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the Joy Reid Show. We're live tonight from the beautiful Colorado foothills where we are currently enjoying the gorgeous weather, perfect weather, and the natural beauty of the wild, wild west. Want to big up everyone who is listening on Substack. Hello to our Substack massive. Also want to salute all of those in the podcast world that are watching us on those places as well, on Spotify. Hello, Spotify folks. We got one person in the chat saying, I think it was Walter Harris, saying it's his first time watching on YouTube. Welcome to the Joy Reid Show Nation. We appreciate you being here, Walter, and everybody else, all the ships at sea. Thank you all for tuning in. And of course, we are following all the many developments that are going on in the world right now in the news cycle that are coming down fast and furious, including, and I want to play for you this rather creepy admission over the last couple of days by Donald Trump that there was, in fact, more to his falling out with Jeffrey Epstein than the two of them just fighting over a real estate deal. Now, I want you to listen to this video. It is a still with audio because this was actually an audio transcript released by the White House. And this is Donald Trump during a White House gaggle saying that Epstein, quote, took people from Trump's Mar-a-Lago spa. Here it is.
So, Mr. President, Epstein has a certain reputation, obviously. I'm just curious, were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women?
Were some of them
young women?
Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were.
Yes, they were young women?
What did they do? In the spa.
In the spa?
Yeah, people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Jeffrey?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
Yeah, so here's the problem, Donald. Actually, Virginia Giuffre is the only person that we know of who was both abused and trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, she was 14 when she was so-called taken from working as somehow an employee of some kind at the spa at Mar-a-Lago. She's the only person that we know that was both abused and trafficked by Epstein and was a former Trump employee. She's the only one. She was also the first Epstein victim to come forward and the most vocal. Now, I want you to listen to this video of the late Ms. Giuffre, who took her own life this April, talking about
I was recruited at a very young age
Epstein.
from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand.
So what did Donald Trump know about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes? And when did he know it? They supposedly fell out prior to Epstein's first arrest in 2006, supposedly over a real estate deal. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is apparently seriously considering a full pardon for the diddler. Here's a picture of them, two of them together in 1997. According to Page 6, he's considering pardoning him, very seriously considering. Why would he do that? It's kind of a weird thing to say that you're going to do, given what he was convicted of, which was trafficking women for prostitution, which weirdly enough is the same thing Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of in 2008. Same exact crime, only in Florida. Also weird, right? Given the fact that Trump has also made noises about maybe pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, who's the woman convicted of essentially pimping young, impoverished women like Virginia Giuffre to Jeffrey Epstein. And this after Ghislaine Maxwell, remember, whose father, Robert Maxwell, was a notorious Mossad agent, allegedly, after this lady met with the DOJ to talk about whatever it is she knows about all the things and allegations that her camp, that her family, lawyers, etc., per Michael Wolff, may have been the source of the leak to the Wall Street Journal about that super special 50th birthday book for Epstein that Donald Trump supposedly drew a naked lady and used his marker signature as the pubic hair for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. All weird things. And joining me now to talk about all of those things is Michael Cohen, who was Trump's personal attorney for many, many years before his conscience caused him to speak out about Trump's dirty business dealings in 2019, after which he became the first victim of Trump's political prosecutions under Bill Barr. The same Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General of the United States when Jeffrey Epstein supposedly died by committing suicide. The same William Barr, whose father originally hired Jeffrey Epstein to teach math at a cushy private high school in Manhattan. Michael has got a great podcast out on Substack, very popular podcast called The Michael Cohen Podcast, which you should subscribe to tonight. He's also the author of a number of best-selling books, including Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice. Michael, my friend, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, my Joy, it's been a while.
It's been too long, Michael. I hope you're keeping well. And it's interesting. I'm so glad that you texted me the other day, and we hadn't, as you said, talked in a while. I've been really focused on doing this podcast and had my head down, but I had been thinking about you and had been concerned about you because of all the threats that Donald Trump has been leveling at various people. I think recently he's thrown in Oprah and Beyonce and whoever else
and Reverend
is
Al,
hurting his
our
spirit at the
mutual
time,
friend,
Kamala Harris. But
and our
Reverend
mutual friend,
Al.
Reverend Al. Yeah.
Exactly. And our mutual friend, Reverend Al Sharpton, and he's sort of spouting off, but really because he's freaked out about this Epstein stuff. But you've already experienced what it looks like when Donald Trump actualizes his threats. So I just want to start out by asking, how are you doing? And what is, your level of concern at this point, because you are so vocal?
Well, I don't really have a level of concern anymore. After doing prison time, you sort of don't think about much. And while I'm back, now, of course, with my wife, I mean, it's never been a problem. We're married 31 years. I have my two children. With my relationship has not changed with them. I would say more than 90% of all of my close friends remained close friends. We did lose some. We have a handful that are members of Mar-a-Lago have invited, us to go there for various different events, which we thank them, but we respectfully decline. I'm actually, I'm not going to stop speaking my truth. I'll tell you the part that sort of, Joy, bothers me the most. I've been very vocal. I've gone on many, many television shows, and they ask me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. They asked me many questions about Donald Trump and young girls, children. They asked me many questions about lawsuits that have taken place. And the part that I find disturbing, and it dismays me tremendously, is people on both sides of the aisle. And I'm talking more now to my fellow Democrats. And by the way, to those same people, I've been a Democrat basically my entire life. 1987, I started working for Congressman Joe Moakley of Massachusetts. And I was in college for 87 and then 88. What bothers me the most is that they don't even do a scintilla of research. Michael, you must know about this payoff that allegedly took place in 1990. Well, with all due respect, in 1990, I was in law school. All right. Oh, you must know about this one. Yeah, that took place in 1988. I was graduating high school. Well, what about the one in 2001? Yeah, what about it? I was right at that point in time. I was working for myself. I had a massive transportation and real estate company that I built. So I wasn't even in Trump's orbit. I didn't come into Trump's orbit until 2005. All right, which is at that point in time, I was at a major, major law firm here in New York as a partner, and was doing outside work for Trump. I became the executive vice president and special counsel for Donald in 2007. And as I stated to many of the different moderators of these shows, to many journalists and substackers and show hosts like yourself, my Joy, I never saw Jeffrey Epstein in the office. I never heard Donald speaking to him. I never met Jeffrey Epstein personally. I never spoke to him, never texted him, never emailed, never had any communication. I'm not even sure if I've ever even been, despite being a real local guy, and we live relatively close to one another. I never met him. I don't even think I was in a restaurant at the same time as him. I wouldn't know, but I have no idea. So when they ask me and they say, well, Cohen, you need to spill all the truth. Let me be very clear. My truth is not designed to attain your applause or your clickbait. My journey is to tell the truth, because as I continue to do that, the truth always rises, as Buddha said, right? The truth always rises, and we will one day, and hopefully soon, find out everything that we need to know about this Epstein file, because I do ultimately believe that Trump and his administration and the DOJ and Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche will have no choice but to release the file unredacted in its entirety, except, of course, for the names of the victims.
And I'm so glad that you gave us that timeline, because you're absolutely right. I think that people are conflating a lot of different eras. I just showed the 1997, Diddy Puffy video, photo with Trump. In that era, in the 1990s, and as you said before, you were involved. Donald Trump knew a lot of celebrities, including a lot of Black celebrities, and he would have them party with him at Mar-a-Lago. This was like a common thing. And Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein in that era for sure. So maybe we might want to ask the diddler what he knows about what was going on, because he's the one who maybe is going to get a pardon out of all of this. And so the reality is that for you, though, the era in which you were working for Donald Trump is around the time when Melania Trump comes into the picture, when you're seeing Donald Trump getting close to getting The Apprentice, right? This is close to when he gets The Apprentice, which he gets
No. When I
2
was there,
years
he was
after
already.
Jeffrey Epstein.
No. When I was there,
He was already on The Apprentice. Okay, so right, he
into, I
had the
think,
Celebrity
season
Apprentice.
2. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Okay, so you're in that early Apprentice era when Donald Trump is really exploding as sort of a national celebrity, really, because he had been like a New York celebrity and he'd been here and there, but The Apprentice is what really kind of built his brand. But one of the questions that people have had specifically about Melania, and I don't know what you know about this because I don't know how involved you were in this aspect of sort of his world, is that Melania kind of comes into his life in a way that makes you literally look at how Trump was dealing with women. Let's set aside Jeffrey. It's hard to set aside Jeffrey Epstein, but for a moment, Donald Trump himself ran a modeling agency that only closed in 2017. He apparently represented Paris Hilton in that agency. He was around John Casablancas, who was accused credibly of preying on the models who were at Elite Modeling Agency, which was the agency where Ivanka was represented from the time she was 14 years old. He was around the guy who founded Karen Models, who was also credibly accused of preying on the very young models who were signed to Karen Models and who allegedly killed himself in France as he was being accused of sexual predation. You see where I'm going with this, Michael? Even if you say, okay, Donald Trump, I don't know what he knew about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, but I would love you to talk about what Donald Trump's own behavior, his own behavior in that era, to me, is something it's interesting when you put it in the context of him being besties with a pedophile for 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, during that period of time, you're right, Trump model management, I saw the closure of it. It wasn't a successful modeling agency. They basically would use the women or the girls from whether it was Miss Teen USA, Miss USA, or Miss Universe. They would be part of that Trump model management. But remember, I believe that the marriage between Donald and Melania occurred in 2005. And that's around, again, the time that I just started to enter his orbit in terms of the fighting, the litigation, and so on that took place between himself and a board on a building that he had developed. So, I know the gentleman that you're referring to who took his own life, Jean-Luc. There are all sorts of rumors and stories about that as well. The one thing that Trump does is he actually hurts himself making comments that if he would just take a pause, or one of his enablers would engage him as I used to in conversation so that you keep him on a right track in terms of the thing he says. When he would say things as he did about if Ivanka wasn't his daughter, he would date her, making comments about going backstage at, the pageants and the models would be naked and so on, which is something that he talked about on Howard Stern. A lot of the stuff that he says for shock value. Now, I don't understand that concept. It's not my nature. It certainly is his. But I was one of 3 people who Donald Trump had on the board of directors for the Miss Universe organization. There was only 3. Donald himself, the CFO, Alan Weisselberg, and me. By the way, all 3 felons, by the way, which I think is kind of interesting since we're talking about this as a, I guess, as a bad thing, right? The 3 of us were the board. And I would travel with him for these pageants. Mostly, I wasn't able to go to the one in Russia, which is where so much is alleged to have occurred with, the tapes and so on, none of which has ever surfaced. And I looked for them, not because they were legitimate, because I wanted to find out if they were or weren't. Putting that aside, I too went backstage at the various different pageants, Miss USA. I never went to I don't think I ever went to a Miss Teen, but Miss USA, Miss Universe. And I went backstage because we would go to the office that was there, which had photos of each and every one of the girls. And there were certain rules and things that he was permitted to do. But let me be very clear. All right. I never saw a girl naked. I never saw any of the contestants even in their underwear or bra. I never even saw any of them in their bathing suits. I did see some of them in Miss Universe bathrobes and so on while they were getting their hair done. I have no clue what was or what was not under the bathrobes, but putting all that aside, I don't even believe that Trump actually saw it. I believe he was saying it for shock value on Howard Stern. The problem with doing something like that, some of the comments he's making, like even the most recent one, which was, I never had the privilege of going to Epstein's island. We all can agree, regardless of what side of the aisle that you are on, that it is not a privilege to go to an island with underage children, all right, for the purpose of engaging in sexual relations with them. I mean, there's no privilege to that. Why he used that type of language, why he went to the back on Air Force One to engage the media when you know what they're going to be asking you, makes no sense to me. If I was still in his orbit, I would have put my arm around his waist, held him back, and said, boss, you can't go back there. All right? These are the questions that they're going to answer. And every time that you say something, you stir more controversy, more conspiracy theories where none exists. And if your intent, which we know it is to put an end to this conversation, how about just stop talking about it? Stop giving people reason to have more and more conspiracies.
But the question is why he can't stop and why he does things that seem to make it even more suspicious. The idea that you would pardon Puffy. Why? Given what we've learned through that trial, what he was doing to Cassie and other women. Why would you talk about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell and saying you wish her well? All very strange things to do. And I'll ask you one other question, Michael, because then other Michael that we had on this show, Michael Wolff, has said that when Jeffrey Epstein in 2016 had a conversation that I believe Jeffrey Epstein's brother has also said he was a witness to, and that Michael Cohen either got from the brother or witnessed himself, that Jeffrey Epstein apparently went into his vault or went into his safe and took out photographs, maybe Polaroids, that according to Michael Wolff contained pictures of Donald Trump with very young women. No one can determine what age they were, but apparently in some compromising looking positions, and apparently a photo, per Michael Wolff, with a stain, quote unquote, on his pants. And that apparently Jeffrey Epstein said to his brother and maybe to Michael Wolff, if what's in my vault were to become public, they'd have to cancel the election, indicating, per his brother, that he had dirt on Donald Trump. And one other piece is that there is an allegation floating around out there, which again, I cannot confirm. I have not done this due diligence myself, so I'm not going to say it's factual. I'm going to say it is coming from this world of reporting that we're seeing from the Miami Herald, from Michael Wolff and others, that according to Jeffrey Epstein's brother, he says he had something on him, and that the timeline of Jeffrey Epstein first being accused, and I've read through that case, which is repulsive and gross. That first accusation in 2006 followed Donald Trump and him getting in a fight over a piece of real estate. Jeffrey Epstein wins, gets the real estate, and then not long after that, he gets reported by someone. Not saying Trump did it,
I don't think so. I don't think the timeline. I don't think.
What do you think could be? That could be.
Yeah, I don't think the way that you're describing it is accurate, because I too had Michael Wolff on my Mea Culpa podcast, and we had the same conversation. In fact, there was something that he advised me on that I was completely unaware. What Michael Wolff explained to me, as told to him by Jeffrey Epstein, is what caused the termination of the relationship was actually Jeffrey, more so even than Donald. Here's the reason why. There was a piece of real estate in Palm Beach that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to purchase. It was a nice piece of property on the water in Palm Beach, very close to Mar-a-Lago, and it was in foreclosure. He advised Donald about this piece of property because obviously Donald, being a real estate magnate, knows a lot about real estate, and he wanted his advice on it and how to navigate through these foreclosures with the bank and so on. It was actually Donald who won out on the bid. In fact, what I learned is that the property that they're referencing was the property 2 years later in 2007, 2008 that I was involved with, that was sold to the Russian oligarch Dmitry Rybolovlev for $95 million. Purchase price was $40 million. Now, here's something that I ultimately learned as well, that the individual who lost the property had actually bought that property from Les Wexner, who is who is one of, let's just say, Jeffrey's major backers, that the $60+ million townhouse that Jeffrey was living in was gifted to him for $1 by none other than Les Wexner. So, let me be very clear here. Jeffrey wanted that property. Donald came in, he pulled the Trump on him, and he ended up with the property. That supposedly was the beginning of the end of the relationship. Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Donald comes up with this new theory that he's now the hero of the story, that he fired or he got rid of Jeffrey from Mar-a-Lago because Jeffrey was a creep that he was stealing these young girls that were working for Mar-a-Lago Spa at the time. Well, this is all new information that's coming out. It's information that is neither corroborated by anybody, nor, at least until this point, with no documentary evidence, no photos, no anything like that. Other than we do know that Virginia Giuffre, she worked at Mar-a-Lago. So here's the problem with the statement that Donald makes. And again, if I was in the orbit, I would have advised him not to come out with that statement. Let's assume hypothetically Virginia Giuffre worked for you. We'll acknowledge that. We'll acknowledge that Jeffrey Epstein stole her from Mar-a-Lago employee. Well, you must have known about Jeffrey's proclivity. Why did you allow it to happen? Right? I mean, you clearly knew what was happening, or you may have suspected. It was your comments that said Jeffrey liked the girls on the younger side. Why not step in? Why not do something which is what one would anticipate that an adult, or at least a boss, would do? Why would you let her even go there knowing what you know? And that, to me, is the downside of making these off-the-cuff statements. Now, I get what he was trying to do here. He wants to put himself out there as the hero of the story. Unfortunately, that's not how it plays out.
Especially since Virginia Giuffre, after she left Mar-a-Lago employ, was then trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, and in her own words, used essentially as a sex slave internationally to international clients of Jeffrey Epstein. So you saved her from nothing. In fact, you delivered her. In fact, if you knew, as you said, she was being quote unquote stolen, you certainly didn't object in a way that helped her at all. And he said different employees were taken. Well, which other employees? Journalists should then start asking, well, which other employees were taken? Because that's one that we know was trafficked. Who else worked for you that wound up working for Jeffrey Epstein? He, as you said, he's begging more questions. I want to ask you one question that's a bit more personal to you, because your daughter has talked about sort of the weird kind of ways that Donald Trump interacted with her. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I wrote about it actually in my book, Disloyal. In fact, she went on CNN and discussed it. I was there. We were standing in an area that was outside of the front gate at Trump National Bedminster, in front of the pool, which is just adjacent to the tennis courts. And my daughter was coming off the tennis court, and she was wearing one of those white skirts with, with one of the tennis tops and so on. And Trump looked at me and he said to me, he goes, "Do we not have the best looking members in this club? What a piece of ass." I turned around and I said to him, "Hey, boss, that's Samantha. That's my daughter." So he turns around and he goes, "Oh shit. When did she get so beautiful?" I said, "Well, she was born beautiful. She looks like her mother." Right? And let me say it was definitively an inappropriate.
Sorry, how old was she at the time?
15. She was 15 years old.
Wow.
But
Wow.
look, there are many statements that have been made over the years regarding women by Donald. Good ones, bad ones, horrific ones. But I think we have to stay focused on the allegations versus the reality. Somebody can say stupid things and not cross the line to illegality. And I bring up the point, Trump made a very overt statement the other day on Air Force One, and I think it needs to be noted, when he said, and it's not the first time, it's actually the third over a period of 2 days. So saying it again repetitively, there's a reason he wants to get that statement out. And the statement he made was, again, that he was never on Epstein's island, right? And that was not just said once, it was said, I think, 2 or 3 times. There's a reason why he's saying it, because I do believe that he was never on Epstein's island. Now, people are saying, fuck you, Michael, bullshit. You know, you're on the payroll. You must be back. You're scared. He must be coming at you. That's not true. I'm merely stating a fact. Knowing Trump as I do, which is probably greater than anybody else, which is what made my interview with Michael Wolff so incredible, because few people know Jeffrey Epstein like Michael Wolff does, and few people, if anybody, knows Trump as I do, the two of us together. But the point I'm making here is he knows that that fact is going to come out, and down the road, he will use that fact to exonerate himself from anything that could be in that file that would implicate him in any way, shape, or form. Because I don't believe that Trump was with any of these young girls in a sexual way. I just don't believe it. Could I be wrong? Maybe. Do I believe I'm right? Yes. Right? I wasn't there. I have no firsthand knowledge. And so I don't like to talk as a former lawyer, and I will get my license back hopefully soon. But as a lawyer, I try to delve into actual facts. Things that, for example, you know, there's documentary or corroborating testimony to back it up. Because anybody could throw out a conspiracy theory. And, you know, Joy, I don't have to tell you, the problem with conspiracy theorists, they're never satisfied with the answer.
So then my final exit question to you, Michael, and I appreciate you giving us all this context. I think it's so key to get this personal information. As you said, few people know Trump like you do. What could then, knowing Trump as you do, be the motive for what really feels like a cover-up of whatever is in those files? If Donald Trump is blameless in the crimes or did not have knowledge of the carnal crimes being committed by his best friend for 15 years, why cover it up? Why offer to immunize or grant immunity to Ghislaine Maxwell? Why sue Rupert Murdoch over this birthday book? Just admit you were in the birthday book. Just admit you signed the book. Why does he seem to be covering up everything related to Epstein?
Joy, that, my friend, is the billion-dollar question. It makes no sense to me. You know, I was also on various different news stations talking about the Epstein 50th birthday card. Let me be very clear on 2 things. One, Donald Trump is not a doodler. One, he doesn't keep paper on his desk, nor does he have a computer on his desk. It's basically he gets pieces of paper, faxes, or printouts from his one of the secretaries or somebody. He responds on those back and forth. That's how he does his business. I've never seen him in the 12.5 years that I worked for him. I've never seen him doodle once. I've never seen him take a pen to a piece of paper and actually just draw even lines like circles or squares or whatever it is. Trump is not a drawer. He's not an artist.
But he sold
However,
doodles. Like he actually sold doodles. Like he actually sold and signed pictures.
Well, he didn't sell the doodles. They donated them to charity. So let me
but
say,
he made them.
But if I can turn around and sort of tell you what I believe, and I can tell you I'm almost 100% certain that I'm accurate. His girls that worked for him as executive assistants, every single one of them was an amazing artist, some of whom are just off the charts. I mean, phenomenal. Many of the signatures that you get, whether it was on a hat or a golf ball or a tie, the secretaries did it. Because you don't really think that Trump was sitting there signing 1,000 golf balls, all right, or thousands of these hats. So somebody sent him let's say Ghislaine sent him a paragraph, and he gave it, or Rona gave it to one of the girls and said, do something here that you think matches with the context of the verbiage that's in it. They came up with this sort of design. He did sign his name on it, and he probably colored in some lines so that he could turn around and say that he actually did it, right? Like the skyline of New York, the buildings in New York. He probably just went like this with his black Sharpie. That's probably what happened. Is it his? No more than it was Erte, right, who signed his name to a bunch of sculptures that he didn't even produce, right? I mean, it happens all the time. It was for a charity. Nobody at the time even thought that he was going to be running for president, let alone be a president twice. And so that's probably what happened. Why? Again, because you're asking the billion-dollar question. Why in the world are they not just dropping the file unredacted in its entirety, except for the victims' names? I have no idea. And why he keeps saying things that make him appear to be more guilty, I don't know that either. It's bad communication by his enablers. It's bad advice by these same people. And I'm going to tell you, they're pushing him down a hole that it's not benefiting him at all. Even his own MAGA base are beginning to turn against him.
Yeah. Michael Cohen, we've kept you way over time, my friend. Thank you so much. There it is. You have given us the information. We can take that in and we can think it out and ruminate on it. And I am going to keep asking that question. Why the cover up? Why? Michael Cohen, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to let everybody know that's in the chat right now. We are traveling. We are in the Rocky Mountains. We are in the foothills of Colorado. So the Wi-Fi is janky. So please be patient with us as far as the Wi-Fi signal is concerned. That is why it looks a little choppy over here. But we can hear fine as long as you guys can hear what's going on. That's what's most important. Okay, let's do a turn here. I'm gonna turn this conversation. You guys can continue in the chat to talk about what you just heard from Michael Cohen, what you think about it, and we're gonna keep on that story. But I want you to take a look at this video. Now, what you're going to watch, what you're going to see is Representative Justin Jones, you will remember, represents constituents in the Nashville, Tennessee area, being denied entry to a hearing. And the hearing is on whether Elon Musk is going to get to expand an AI plant in a part of Tennessee, in the Nashville area, where it is going to pollute the air and water of Representative Jones' constituents. Here's that video.
Yeah, let's step back out here for just let everybody come through. I'm pushing it a little bit.
Project is in my district. In this airport where we are is my district.
I understand.
I'm here to get information from my constituents. Casey Sellers, the governor's comms person.
Okay.
And that's who I might call to let know I was coming.
Okay.
What is your name, sir?
Hey, I'm Nathan Butcher.
What is your role?
So I work with Altitude Ventures.
Is this a part of the state of Tennessee?
I understand what you're saying. It is definitely. Can you hold on for just 1 second?
I'm here in my oversight capacity.
I know. I understand.
I was elected to represent the people, 75,000 people who live on Murfreesboro Pike, who live around the airport.
I'm responsible for the list, and I'm just trying to be respectful to my role. That's all. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you.
As a representative of this district, are you saying that I cannot go to this event?
No, I'm not saying it has to do with you being a representative. I'm just saying I just need to check the list and make sure. I'm not being rude. I want you to understand. I know who you are, and I respect you. I've talked to you before. We've met.
I have not met you, sir.
Tell me your last name.
This is a representative who doesn't even live in the district. This is one of the state senators who does not live in this district. So if you allow somebody from Knoxville to come and not a representative of Nashville, who this airport is in my district, and that is...
I hear what you're saying. I understand.
She says she's not on the list.
Just make sure.
No, I've got the list.
And my husband's with you.
Get you a wristband.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, just, excuse me, sir.
I'm a lawmaker just like this lawmaker here.
This is a private event.
Sir, this is my district. And if
Understand,
we allow
this
us,
is a private event.
this is about a public partnership. Murfreesboro Pike is in my district. This airport's in my district.
Sir, this is a private event. I cannot let you through.
Can we go talk?
You just let somebody
She's
from
on the
Knoxville.
list.
She wasn't on the list.
She is on the list.
Didn't even look like your name was on the list.
That's because I filled in for the lieutenant governor.
Her husband was not on the list.
Yes, he was.
I saw the phone in your. Can you show me on your phone?
If you'll come with me, I'll sit and talk to you.
Why is Cameron Sexton allowed? He doesn't represent this district.
Cameron, do you think they should let Jones in? It's his district.
It's their event.
Isn't this a state project? Isn't that why you're here?
Republican lawmakers are being allowed.
And joining me now, as you can see on your screen, is Representative Justin Jones. I want to start by asking you, and this is one of those ways in which new media is just different from other media. I literally saw that clip earlier today, put it on my Instagram because that seemed outrageous. And then within a couple of hours, I was texting with you and asking you if you could come on and talk about it. Tell us who, if you know, was denying you entry to a hearing about what's going to be built in your district.
Yes, well, so Joy, it's always an honor to join you, and I'm actually sitting in front of where they're going to be voting on giving this land tomorrow to Elon Musk company, the Boring Company, and I was here looking at it, and they've already set up, the company's already set up, and I'll tell you about that later, but on Monday, I tried to go to the airport in my district to attend the public announcement in partnership with the state of Tennessee about this Tesla tunnel that's going to be running from Nashville, my district, under Murfreesboro Pike to downtown. My constituents will be impacted by this, and lobbyists were at the table and stopped me from coming in. What I saw in there were lobbyists. The particular company is called Alliance Venture Capital Firm. It's a venture capitalist firm, and they are part of this project. And they stopped me as a lawmaker from getting to get information for my constituents and asking questions on their behalf about how this project that has been rushed through and steamrolled through will impact their day-to-day lives.
So what you're saying is a private corporation can deny the elected representative of the very district where they want to build a polluting plant. They can deny entry to an elected official. That doesn't seem like that could be legal.
I mean, this is unprecedented from what I've heard from other colleagues about, usually when an event happens in your district, state lawmakers, especially a state event, are given the courtesy and the collegiality to attend and to hear and to be a part of that process. This is the first time that a lot of my colleagues have told me, even Republicans, that this is very unusual and not the norm. But it's showing us that this is a shady deal, that Elon Musk is somebody who thinks that he's above government. And our governor here is in partnership with him. It was actually the governor's office who ordered for me to also not be allowed in. And then lobbyists were the ones that physically blocked me, as well as the police who they called to threaten to say that I was trespassing on at a public meeting involving my constituents, involving a state resources and a state deal. And so it just shows us that our government has been co-opted and it's been captured by these corporate interests like Elon Musk. And the Boring Company has had a history of harmful behavior to the environment, a history of harmful behavior to its workers. Other cities have stopped its project. It's been a failure, and yet they want to use our people here in Nashville as guinea pigs for this corporate this corporation seeing our community as a playground and something to be experimented on, something that is not in the interest of my constituents and something that no Nashvilleian I've talked to supports.
So as you viewers take a look at this, just remember we've now had a private prison company being able to determine whether the mayor of Newark, New Jersey could inspect that facility, and 3 members of Congress, one of whom has now been charged with a crime for being shoved by masked agents who may or may not be ICE. We've had the United States Senator from California tackled to the ground and detained like a criminal for just trying to ask Kristi Noem about the issuance of military, putting military on the streets of California to try to grab people off the streets there and put them into private prison facilities. And now we've had the duly elected representative in Nashville told that he's not allowed to go in because a private company gets to unimpeded get to throw a plant into his area that's going to potentially sicken people. Can you tell us what would you have wanted to ask had you been in that hearing?
I want to ask the question my constituents have been asking me. They're planning to build this Tesla tunnel from the airport to downtown, to the Broadway honky tonks and bars. It's not going to serve, working class people, the teachers, the school bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, the postal workers who live in my district. This is not going to help them. This is not a real solution for public transit, but instead this is going to serve tourists and the wealthy and well-connected. The questions they had were the environmental impact. This company, the Boring Company, has had a history of polluting wastewater. When they tried this project in Las Vegas, my constituents are concerned with how this will impact, them via pollution, as well as occupational and workplace safety. Elon Musk sees people as expendable. He sees communities as expendable. And our community is saying that we are not expendable, that people live here and that we will speak up for each other, because we're not going to allow somebody who does not even live in our community to come here, destroy it like he did in Texas. With his spaceship company, he's turned that city into a sacrificial zone, and just saw it as disposable and then left them to be. And that's what he wants to do around this nation, and he's doing it around Tennessee and Memphis. He's building an XAI plant here nationally. He's trying to build this Tesla tunnel from the airport, which is going to be something that has not been done yet, with no government oversight. The FAA hasn't had a saying. The state government, we haven't had a vote on it. They're giving away state property tomorrow, but I'm here, and I just went to go look at it, and employees from his company came out and told me that I was trespassing on state property and that they would call the police if I didn't leave. Just looking at it, I just wanted to see the land. We're giving away a football-sized field space of land for free to Elon Musk. I want to see what that looks like and what is the better use of that land. I can see affordable housing for my constituents. I can see, investing in things that serve the people, not giving land away to the richest man in the world, who's on a vanity project. That's what this is.
And thank you for that correction, because right, it's hard to keep track of how many horrible things are being done by the super rich at the expense of vulnerable communities. Right, Memphis is where they're going to build the AI plant, which is going to pollute their air and water. This is a Tesla tunnel, so it just seems that it's sort of a playground. The United States has become a playground for billionaires to do whatever they want. Larry Ellison, the Ellison family, he and his son David now own Paramount via Skydance, meaning they get to, I guess, control, everything from TV to movies to news to comedy for their own interests. Essentially, it feels like the whole country has been given away to core civic and other private prison industries. It's like a playground for the rich at this point. And Tennessee in particular, Representative Jones, has already seen this when it comes to gun manufacturers. They essentially can do whatever they want in Tennessee, no matter how many children die, no matter how many schools get shot up. There's simply no desire among your colleagues to do anything to restrain them. And now they've added Elon Musk to the list of rich, powerful business interests that get to run your state.
This is not government of, by, and for the people. This is government of, by, and for corporations. And it's no mistake. It's so hard to keep up with all the projects that Elon Musk is pushing through this nation because governments like the state of Tennessee government, ruled by Republicans, are bowing down to him. This is the most insulting thing, Joy. Yesterday, Monday, the governor, when he announced his project, he said this is the coolest project he's worked on in his 8 years as governor. He's the most excited for this project. I would be excited about funding our public schools. I would be excited about, investing in our real public transit, in our healthcare infrastructure. I would be excited about, investing in climate mitigation with this record heat we're experiencing, building things that actually help working people and everyday people, not this tunnel that's only going to be for Teslas underground, and that's not going to serve the people who live in this state. That's so insulting when it shows that they're not serious, they're not serious politicians, serious legislators, or serious government officials, but they are people who want to cozy up to the rich and powerful, and a man who doesn't even care about us. Like, once he destroys Texas, he's going to do the same to Tennessee. He's going to go to another state. And so my message to the people across the nation is that they're coming to your community next. States like Tennessee are the tip of the spear where they come because they don't have any type of pushback. They don't have any type of opposition, but they're trying to nationalize this, and they already are. And he wants to talk about government efficiency. This is not an efficient project to build a one-way tunnel to a tourist area when a rail system that will actually get people to and from work, to and from their children's soccer games. That's what we need, not this vanity project of a Tesla tunnel that's only going to be used for his vehicles. So it's going to profit him by getting his vehicles, building charging stations for his vehicles. It's all a profit scheme for billionaires, the wealthiest men in the world, who sees our community as a community to just come in and as a Black elected official, I feel like it's almost like an apartheid government, because the people, they're forcing this outside will on people, yet the people who live here, my constituents in the most diverse district, who are Black and brown and working class, have no say. That's not how government should work.
Yeah. It is not almost like apartheid, Representative Jones. It is apartheid. And ask the people of Louisiana and Mississippi what it looks like when major corporations and polluters get to run the government and destroy the environment, when ordinary people have to pay the price in places like Cancer Alley, and then they just move on and drill somewhere else, and they don't care how many people get sick and die. Representative Justin Jones, thank you for always standing for what's right and standing for the people. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Sister Joy. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, young brother. I appreciate you. Well, we're just going to keep it going here. And again, we're going to defy the Wi-Fi gremlins, and we're going to keep going because, believe it or not, there's more. Just wait, there's more. Over the weekend, moving now to some international/national news, a flotilla of some 24 activists from around the world. They were from Norway and Australia and England and Spain and the United States, all over the world. about 24 of them, attempted to approach Gaza by sea to deliver much needed food to the people who are being deliberately starved by the Netanyahu government or shot by the IDF when they try to retrieve the meager foodstuffs that do get in. The ship was detained, and the people on board were taken into IDF custody. One of them, an American and the only Black activist on the ship, Chris Smalls, was also allegedly beaten while in custody. We have some video of Chris Smalls and the video that he and all the other people that were on that ship made before they were detained after their ship was intercepted by the Israeli military. Here is Chris Smalls' video.
We have been intercepted at sea and have been kidnapped by the Israeli occupation forces or forces of the country complicit in Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. I appeal to my comrades, friends, family, to everyone to put pressure on the U.S. government to demand my release and the release of my comrades as soon as possible. Thank you.
I have not heard anything from the United States government, the Trump regime, or really, I haven't heard Democrats or Republicans calling for his release or the other multiple Americans. We're going to put up a picture of the Americans that were on that ship. It's about 4 or 5 Americans were on that ship, but there were also citizens from all over the rest of the world. And all of this is happening, and this inaction by our government. There are the Americans who were on that ship, including Mr. Smalls. And all of this is coming as the Prime Minister of Great Britain announced this week that the UK is imminently going to join the 100+ nations, it's something like 170 nations around the world, to recognize Palestine as a state. And they say, Keir Starmer, the prime minister there, says they're going to do that if the starvation siege does not end. I'm not sure why they wouldn't just do it, but they say they'll do it if the starvation siege does not end. We also are hearing reports, Yashar Ali is reporting on his IG page, which you should be following, that potentially Canada and some other countries might join and do the same because of this forced starvation in Gaza. Joining me now is our friend Peter Beinart, who has been one of the most dogged journalists on this story. Peter, I want to ask you first about if you find it a strange that the usually rather vocal and vociferous Trump administration hasn't said anything about what sure looks like the kidnapping of multiple Americans by a foreign government.
I mean, the thing about the Trump administration's understanding of what it means to be an American, is that it doesn't really rest on one's citizenship. It rests on conformity to kind of his understanding of what a true American is, which generally is a kind of white conservative Christian. And so there's a long history when it comes to Israel that, let's say, American citizens who are Palestinian don't get the protections really of the United States government. So I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm really not.
What about this, the notion that, what do you make of the fact that it seems that there are 2 of these detained people from this flotilla that seem to have been harmed in some way? There was a very elderly woman from Norway who was apparently put into solitary confinement despite her advanced age. And this gentleman, who was the only Black person that was on that ship, allegedly beaten. What do you make of that?
I mean, I hope these things turn out not to be true, but I think you're talking about an encounter with a military force that that is not constrained by international law. I mean, this is, if the United States had tried to enforce international law vis-a-vis Israel and supported the International Criminal Court, we would be in a very different reality today. But instead, the United States government, under both Biden and Trump, has consistently sent the message that international law doesn't apply to Israel. It doesn't apply to the United States either. It applies to America's adversaries alone, and perhaps some random, poor countries in places like Africa where the United States doesn't really have much interest. And so these are then, when you create that context, these kind of things, if this is what's happened, unfortunately, wouldn't be out of character.
And how would that change? How might that change if there was broad recognition from veto holding countries in the United Nations of Palestine as a state? What might that change for Palestinians?
I mean, it could potentially change something. It doesn't change anything in and of itself. It's symbolic, right? There isn't obviously today, right now, a state of Palestine. If there were, Israeli troops wouldn't be there bombing and killing people. The question is whether the legal recognition will then lead Britain and France to impose sanctions and consequences on Israeli behavior when Israel does things in the West Bank or in Gaza or in East Jerusalem that they haven't now. So maybe it's a step towards doing what really matters, or maybe it's not. What really matters is ending military arms sales that facilitate this kind of slaughter and starvation and abuse, and ending the kind of economic relationship that allows Israel to maintain this economic trade ties to Europe and not have to pay a consequence for what it's doing to Palestinians.
And you know, I don't know if you saw the Senator Slotkin in the interview
I
that
did.
Crystal Ball did with her on her YouTube channel, which was pretty remarkable. Yeah, that she couldn't say that the forced starvation of men, women, and children who are in some cases dying at a lower rate than when they were born, that you can see the pictures of, you see them starving. She couldn't get there to say that that is genocide. And she seemed to be twisting and turning and in a lot of sort of physical pain almost, trying to explain why we should still fund Israel's military. So Democrats are to the right of many Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene on this. How do we explain this?
Well, I think that the Israel-Palestine issue is becoming, in some ways, less of a partisan issue and more of a kind of a top-down issue in which the establishments of both parties, the political leaders of both parties in Washington, are, with a few exceptions, are generally supportive of unconditional support for Israel, while support for that position has completely eroded in the Democratic Party and is significantly eroding among young Republicans as well. And so just like you saw that Tucker Carlson interview with Ted Cruz, where Tucker Carlson was kind of, I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson, but he was embodying a certain thing that's emerging from the right-wing base, Republican Party base, and challenging Cruz. That's what Crystal Ball and her co-host were doing vis-a-vis Slotkin. And the amazing thing to me about that interview is Slotkin is a smart woman, right? She's actually more well-versed on this issue than most members of Congress. She was in the military. She has some background in the Middle East. But because of the ideological kind of limitations of how you're allowed to talk about this issue in Washington, when she was confronted with people who asked her very basic, straightforward moral questions, even though she's a smart woman, she was basically tying herself up in complete knots and pretzels because she can't answer these questions in a straightforward way, right? I think that it makes you realize why it's so important for us to have journalists who will ask those questions, right? Who penetrate this kind of self-created bubble that exists in so much Washington discourse around this subject.
Yeah, and kudos to Crystal, who did some excellent journalism that you really don't see on mainstream media. She and her
100%.
co-host stayed on it. But there is this sort of twisting and turning to the point where Democrats can't even back the likely winning candidate for the mayor of New York. They're still, I watched Andrew Cuomo get about 8 minutes of free airtime on CNN. No one asked if he ought to condemn Bibi Netanyahu and Smotrich, who has said, we're going to put Gaza on a diet. They said way before they started starving them, we're going to do this. And no one ever asked, do you condemn Bibi Netanyahu? No one ever asked. But Mamdani is demanded that he condemn Hamas every time he goes on TV. And it seems like Democrats would rather oppose him and get back Cuomo than back the... I don't understand where Democrats are on this. Is this just Apex power? Are they that powerful?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's partly that. I think it's also that a lot of these Democratic politicians have emerged in a political environment in which for their entire political careers, the message they've gotten is the safe thing to do politically is to support Israel, right? And yes, that's partly certainly due to AIPAC, but it's also because public opinion used to be somewhat different on this issue. And I think that they haven't realized that actually just putting aside the horror and the absolute indefensibility morally of this, they are really slow. And I think a lot of them are, I think, it kind of in a bit of a cocoon, a kind of consultant Democratic politics cocoon, and it's partly generational, where they don't realize that actually this position they're taking, they should look at Andrew Cuomo and think, do I want to be Andrew Cuomo? Right? Because Andrew Cuomo had a lot of problems, but Zohran, we have polling on this now. Zohran Mamdani's position on Israel-Palestine was an asset with voters in New York, right? And a lot of the Democratic politicians, I think, if they're going to have a really rude awakening when they actually go and talk to voters on this and realize that what they think is safe politics is no longer safe politics. It's actually very unsafe politics. I think there are a lot of Democratic politicians who are kind of in the position that Jeb Bush was in the Republican Party. He thought he understood his political party, but he really didn't.
Amen. Peter Beinart, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you very much for making the time.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Cheers. And I want to note for you all, as we exit this topic, that one of the filmmakers in an award-winning project, the Palestinian filmmaker who joined an Oscar-winning film project, was killed, not in Gaza, but in the West Bank. We're seeing the kinds of violence take place on the West Bank by settlers who, with impunity, are killing Palestinian farmers and ordinary citizens. And this filmmaker, who was part of the No Other Land documentary crew, you can see in there he's a father of 3 young children, killed by settlers. And my understanding is that the man who killed him has already gotten out on bond, and he was deemed not unsafe to release. That is where we are. It is a scary place that we are, and there's a lot of other things going on in the country that seem to merit condemnation. You see what's happening in Sudan and in the Congo as well, and we're going to talk more about those subjects on this podcast as well, because it does feel like there are certain entities that are acting with impunity in our world today. One of them is, of course, the state of Israel, which seems to be unbounded by morality, by international law, even by being deemed an apartheid state by the ICC, being deemed a state in which their leader is a war criminal. Nothing seems to be slowing them down at all. And Democrats are clearly on the wrong side of history there. But those forces are happening, and also corporations, major corporations, that are running roughshod over this country, taking whatever land they want, despoiling it, polluting that land, the air, in all of whatever state they want, and being able to do that, and then doing that overseas. If you don't understand that Sudan and the Congo are just the result of major corporations and their greed, going in and despoiling those countries for greed, despoiling those countries and letting people die, including children that are mining for the materials to make iPhones. It's all one story. I say this all the time. It's just one big story. And then the third group of private corporations that seem to be running roughshod over our Constitution, our laws, and our morality, private prisons. This country is now in the private prison and pollutants business, to the point now where apparently our federal government, in its wisdom, is going to now declare that the greenhouse gases emitted by coal and gas companies are not pollutants at all, because private prisons have got to win. They get to do whatever they want. People die, people get sick. Oh, well, too bad. I want to thank you all for hanging with us, and thank you for hanging with us with our Wi-Fi connection problems. Thanks to everybody who's also listening on Spotify, on Substack, and those of us who are here on YouTube, and also our Team TJRS members. The live chat will be on Friday. We'll be back in our home Wi-Fi, so it's going to be great. So if you are a Team TJRS member, you're going to participate in this members-only chat, and also Substack premium members, you're going to get to be in that chat too. We're just going to hang out with one another. That's going to be at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on this channel and on Substack as well. Please want to ask you guys to subscribe. Do not just be a lurker. Make sure that you are a subscriber to this channel so that we will know that you care about independent media and that you support independent journalism. Also want to ask you to share this channel so that more people can join our team. And also hit the like button. Okay.